Everybody, welcome to the show and episode 133. Okay, guys, we are back again. So it's been a minute since I've done one of these, but this guy reached out to me and pod match again, and you get a lot of matches, and sometimes you just run into each other because our lives are, we've been through a lot of different struggles, but there's not a lot of similarities, and well, there's some, but he's been through totally different situations than I have, but there is parallels, and I'm glad to now get to know him and have him on because it's a different story, and there's a lot of questions I'd like to ask him through his journey because it's different than mine. And as I like to say, I like to learn with the audience because I don't like to come on here and act like I know everything. It's especially when it's stuff that I have so many other issues that I don't have time to really try to learn everyone else's issues. So this is kind of the way I do it. So yeah, buddy, you want to kind of tell us your name and maybe a little about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Charles Smith. I'm a veteran, Army infantry veteran, and I'm an author of 7 self-help books, which can be found on lifeexperience.net. And I'm a survivor of PTSD for 40 plus years now, 44 years. Wow. Yeah, going on 44 years.
Right.
30 years in addiction recovery. I'm a suicide survivor from the year 2000. And I was a homeless veteran and an orphan. And the list goes on and on.
Right. Yeah, it's, I've talked about this, I think it was on the last episode. It's amazing how vulnerable we are, vulnerable, can't speak today, as we are as kids, and how, we're essentially just put in our parents' hands or whoever is our caregivers at that point in time. And it's like, here, take care of us. We can't do anything with ourselves. We're almost useless to a certain extent, especially when you're a baby, because you can roll over and smother yourself. So you're just there. And then all of a sudden you're just introduced to life. And a lot of times for a good amount of people, life can be very shitty, and it really morphs you into who eventually you'll be to become. And it's like someone like you, me, and many others have just, sometimes it's not just a couple things. It's a constant, you're constantly, you never really have time to suppress and figure out like, oh, can I breathe? Because life just continues to keep coming at you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you, yeah, go ahead.
I think that times like what we've gone through is like a crucible. I seen this on Arrow, the TV show Arrow.
Arrow,
and
right. Superhero. Right.
Yeah, and he talks about a crucible. Like you either survive it and become that much stronger for surviving it, or you let it take you over. Yeah. And we're two that have survived it and became stronger for it.
Yeah. Yeah, you notice it's something I've talked about a lot, where, like, especially mental health wise, like you notice your bad days don't last as long as they used to. They might consume you months in, days in, weeks in. And now you may just have one bad day where you're feeling sorry for yourself, or you're feeling angry, or just super depressed. And then like within less than 24 hours, you're kind of back on your feet smiling again somehow. And it's not even something you do on purpose. It's a way you bounce back, and you're just kind of used to being strong. And a lot of times you don't realize until you can kind of look outside yourself and say, okay, hey, like, what are you doing there? And then, like, you don't realize like how strong of a person you are until sometimes some really dark things happen and it doesn't really affect you as much. But that comes with experience and trauma that you've dealt with for so long that you're kind of just, used to it and it's numb to some degree, which is not always healthy, but it is a beautiful thing when you can kind of like the fact that you and I could still smile and have a good time, even though we've been through so much shit.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I would agree. And people with mental health, I've often, turned I've helped them to turn their curse, their mental health, whatever you want to call it,
Uh-huh.
into a strength. When I first met the people, oh, I'm cursed with PTSD or this or that, and then I'm like, okay, how do you? What is the positives that you get out of it?
Yeah.
Like me, I've had PTSD for you know 40 plus years, and it's compounded multiple times.
Right.
And but I am very vigilant, and I'm always on my toes and
Yeah.
this and this and that. So that I look at that as a strength that I've gained from it.
Yeah, you're super resilient. Like it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you're still gonna get knocked on your ass plenty of times in life, no matter how old you are. But it's how quick you bounce back and just get up. And
yeah,
maybe it seems stupid because sometimes it does. It seems ridiculous. Like why am I continuing to get up knowing that I'm gonna get knocked down again? But it's just you have to because there's I mean you just sit there and you just take it. Like you're not going anywhere, and your life is not gonna progress. And I mean, mental health. I mean, one of the things I think one of the reasons why my patience is so thin anymore. Like, I want to just get to the point. I want to help people. I want to do as much as I can because when you have mental health, a lot of times you stay still. You don't want to do anything. And it's like there's so many
yeah,
conflicting things within mental health. Like, you're lonely, but you want to be alone. It's like, okay, like, well, how does that make sense? It's like, yeah, I would love to have someone over, but then as soon as someone comes around, you're like, I'm not feeling it. I don't want to go out. I don't want to do anything. I just want to stay here. Like, you just continue to hurt yourself over. It doesn't have to be a physical, like, cut yourself type of thing. You're doing things to just impede your progress. You're getting in your own way. And
yeah,
yeah, and it's such a negative thing, but people don't like. That's why I hate how people talk about mental health in the news and just in overall different shows a lot of times because they talk about it on such a surface level. For someone like who's like a veteran, like you've been through it, you've seen a lot of things that people haven't seen, and and you end up getting a really screwed up head because of it. And it's hard to explain to the average person and what kind of demons you have and what it's like to back into the real world and just like, hey guys, it's great. Like, oh yeah, there's no, we're not killing each other over here. We're not trying to do. I mean, even though it does happen, but I mean,
yeah,
typical society, we're not supposed to do that. And but mental health, it consumes all of us, but especially the ones that have been through so much trauma. Like, I don't know anybody who hasn't been through something bad that hasn't gone through some sort of spell of mental health.
yeah. Especially these days.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, with everything that's going on with COVID, with active shootings, with you know,
Yeah.
going to school back in the '80s, I didn't have to worry, or my family didn't have to worry about active shooters in schools. Now I have a 10-year-old son, and that's one of the thoughts that goes through my head.
Yeah.
Like what if? Because I'm a big what if person.
Yeah. Right.
Like, I look at what could happen. I drive my kid nuts with this all the time, but I look at what could happen. Like, oh, don't stand on that because you're gonna fall over. But
Mm-hmm.
and I see what could happen, and I do what I can to change it.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Especially when you've been through so much, you're trying to stay ahead of, what could happen, good or bad. And
yeah,
you have to be prepared. And a lot of times you can't, I mean, you really can't be prepared for most things, but sometimes you get lucky and something happens and you go, oh, okay, that's similar to something else I went through or similar to something I thought up of. And it's like, all right, I could probably take this. It's going to take a minute to get settled in, but you know,
Yeah.
I'm prepared enough.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Exactly. Like, I mean, I run into that all the time in work. 'Cause I work for a company called Aware Recovery Care,
mm-hmm.
and I run into situations all the time, like um, different clients living with different situations, and a lot of times I can use my lived experience to help them out.
Yeah, and like your story, there's no, I mean, there's physical and obvious traits that people can see, hear, you know, and then feel. There's no bullshit where you're coming in and just like, hey guys, like, you know, like when we were in school, and I don't know, I mean, you're a little older than I am, but people would come into school and say, don't drink because it's poison and it's this, and you're like, okay, you're just telling us to do things basically. But for you, you're a living, you know,
Yeah,
memory for them, and they see what you've gone through. And it's like, oh, okay, we see it in your limp, or we see it how you talk, or we see it however, and even in your expressions in your face. Like, you know, I always said that I'm not a big fan of people who wear shirts saying, like, I'm a survivor, because other survivors know other survivors, and it has nothing to do with a stupid shirt. It's because we see it,
right.
your mental scars, we see how you talk, we see how you move, and, you know, we feel your pain with you. And so I'm sure when you go into those rooms to help people, like, they can feel that your story is genuine.
Yeah, yep,
Uh,
yeah. And
Go ahead.
huh?
No, go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
I've I've worked in detoxes before, and I tell my story to uh, newcomers, and they're like, "That's what it's all about. That's what we want to hear. That somebody that is helping us has lived experience, and not that there's anything wrong with college and stuff like that. I mean, I have a degree myself, but they want people that have lived experience and not just reading out of a book,
Right. Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've said this so many times where, for me, experience, like, I don't care how many degrees you have in anything. To me, degrees in mental health and PTSD and all these type of things, degrees in that is just full on experience. Like, there's so many people that went to school and they have master's degrees in this and that. And, like, to me, it's like, that's great. And I will take your help. But someone who has a master's degree in mental health and PTSD is someone like you. Like, you went through it. You didn't have to go to school for nothing. You lived this experience. And I would rather take your
Yeah,
advice on what trauma is and what PTSD is, because you lived it. It nearly killed you. And
yeah,
I don't want to hear from somebody who went to school for it. And it's no offense to them, but it's I want someone who lived the experience of wanting to die, nearly dying, and all these things, because
yeah, yeah,
that's the real degree. It's not a great degree, but I mean, it is a badge you can wear on your chest every day and say, look, man, I'm surviving every day. Like, this isn't a joke. Like, there's a part of my brain wants me dead, and I'm still here
yeah,
every
yep,
day. So there's your doctorates in that.
yeah, definitely, yep,
Um,
yep,
can,
and
can we kind of delve into what you have been through?
yeah, um,
Because you told me kind of started from when you were 6. That's what you told me
okay,
off
yeah,
mic.
all right. At 6 o'clock, yeah, 6 o'clock, at 6 years old,
I got you, buddy.
my, yeah, my, mother passed away of a drug overdose,
Hmm.
mixing, pills and alcohol. And then my father moved me and my sister around for 5 years. I literally have a book about it. Uh, 10 homes in 11 years,
Wow.
because we actually lived in 10 different homes in multiple different states
Wow.
until my father died when I was 11 years old. I still remember the day. I woke up that morning and my father was in the kitchen making coffee, and I just had like a weird vibe, weird feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, something's gonna happen today.
Wow.
So I'm staying home from school, and I went over, I hugged my father. I'm like, Dad, I'm not feeling good. I want to stay home. Like, no, you've missed enough already. You gotta go. So then I went into my bathroom, shoved my finger down my throat,
Threw up.
and went, Dad, I just feel, you know, I want to,
You're
I
committed.
don't feel good. Oh, yeah, I was because I didn't. It scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
I didn't know what happened. And we were like at the end there. We were like dirt poor. Like me and my father shared a twin size bed, and we didn't have a box spring.
Mm.
We had our clothes in cardboard boxes. You know, I remember our bathroom floor being concrete. You know, that's the kind of place that we lived in. It was a shack,
Right.
but that's all we could get.
Yeah.
And so after that, my father and I went to the store, and he passed out on me.
The
He was
same.
a
The same day.
diabetic. Yeah, yep. Like hours later, maybe an hour or two later,
Wow.
and he passed out on me that day. And the store clerk gave him orange juice, which, being a diabetic, orange juice helped him to get to revive.
Yeah.
You know, and after that, we went back to the house, and he passed out on me again that same day, like an hour, maybe an hour later after the last time.
Mm.
Then I ran over to my neighbor's, and I had the neighbor bring us to the hospital, and holding my father's hand at the hospital, that's when he passed away.
Wow. What
And
What did he die of?
um, diabetic complications,
Wow.
honestly. I'm pretty sure he stopped taking his insulin that he needed to take
Oh.
because, and maybe this is to justify it or whatever in my own head, but my family here in Massachusetts was well off. So he probably thought that, you know, if he wasn't there, then we would be taken care of by them and we would be better off.
Hmm. So you're saying he
That's,
almost essentially let himself go?
I think so, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
That's what I think, yeah.
That's a real sacrifice. Because
Yeah, yeah.
it's almost selfish and not at the same time. Because
Yeah,
because it's like
it's selfish for us.
yeah, it's self, but it's also like how is it going? I mean, you already lost your mother too, so it's like how is this going to affect you mentally? Like and like could you survive without your father? Like I mean, I'm sure he probably didn't take a lot of this into consideration. He just wanted you to live better, which is very unselfish. But then there's a point where it's like, well, I'm gonna die. That's still
Yeah,
that's going to impact you, especially when you've already lost your other parent.
yeah, definitely. Yep, yep.
So it's I mean, it's heroic, but not at the same time. It's really, yeah, that's a weird pickle.
It's a conundrum.
Yeah, for sure.
Is what you would probably call it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
definitely unorthodox way of if this is the way he did it. Like if this was intentional, then it's a very unorthodox suicide. Like it's
yeah, yeah,
and that's the thing. Suicide is a really crazy thing because I've attempted it, and I know you said you have it. It's
yep,
a
yep.
lot of people do perceive it to be whatchamacallit, selfish, and
A
it's
weakness.
yeah, well that you're selfish, but like you don't know kind of what's going on in someone's head. Like you don't understand,
Yeah,
you don't know, and like that's why I always go back to like Robin Williams, who a guy who had everything and he killed himself, and people were kind of
yeah,
surmising like what he thought in his head like, oh well, maybe it's because he was broke, and it's like, no, dude, he could do a comedy tour, he could do a new movie any day he wanted. It's just he didn't want to, and he also was really down on himself because his condition was getting worse, and he couldn't speak the same way. He wasn't as fast as he was, but a guy who had everything, he
Yeah.
killed himself, and he had family, he had kids, and he hung himself in his bathroom, and it's like he knew somebody was gonna find him, but you don't really know
Yeah.
what his head told him to do. Like those voices in his head, you don't know what the last few voices were in there and what the message they were relaying to him. Because at some point, one of those voices said something that made sense to him and said, you know what, screw it, you're right, I'm out of here. Like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
there was
Yep.
a part of your dad that there was still some pureness in there where he was like, I want the best life for my kids. Maybe, and again, that this is how he did it, then it's like, well, this is how I get, help him. And maybe it wasn't the best decision, maybe it was in some ways, but you don't really know, like you can't really say the way he did it was the right way because he also wasn't in the right mind, the right headspace. And
Right.
it's
Yeah.
if you're not, you're
Exactly.
gonna make a
Yeah.
bunch of dumb decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember my own suicide attempt where I my grandfather and my uncle. My grandfather was my legal guardian,
Mm-hmm.
and my uncle was like my father figure. Both died a month apart from cancer,
Okay.
and I remember when my uncle was sick, I was pleading with God, like, take me. I have nothing. I don't want to be here. I don't have anything to tie me here. Take me, leave him. You know, and then after that, um, when they both passed away, I felt a lot of remorse because when they were alive, I never gave them the love that they should have had.
Right.
Because growing up, I was like, oh, they're trying to take my father's place. Nobody's taking my father's place. Leave me alone.
Ah.
That was my train of thought. Yeah. So then that depression grew after they died, and I started cutting on myself to feel something other than what I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I one night I just was like, "This is it. I'm done. I don't want to live anymore." I wrote the words "F you world" on my arm, or I carved it on my arm,
Right.
and I took a bottle of sleeping pills and I went to sleep, not thinking that I was going to wake up again. I was totally content with just ending it.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I mean, with all the darkness in my head at that time, it was like a release from that. That's what it was going to be for me. And then my friend found me and sent me to the hospital, and then I went to a VA hospital, and after that, I became a homeless veteran, and that's where I discovered that I wasn't alone,
Yeah.
which was huge. And that's what I try to do for people now is tell them that they're not alone.
Did that follow
Because
you?
seeing,
Did that follow you for a
huh?
while? That your suicide attempt, did that follow you for a while? Like as something that you attempted? Like, is that something that people looked at you as like, oh, he's that guy, like the guy who tried to kill himself? Because you know how this world is. We put labels on
Yeah.
people, and
No, yeah.
and
Yeah.
suicide is one that
Definitely. Yeah.
people are hard to. It's hard to people to get past it.
Yeah. 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 And even people in my family, some people in my family think that it's a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
If they do it, or you know, it's the easy way out, or this or that, and they just don't understand it.
And they're not totally wrong because it is technically the easy way out because you don't have to deal with any more your pain. but it's that you can't say it's weak when you don't know what someone's going through. And even like stuff from the out, like there's stuff that's going on. Like on the outside, something seems so normal for everyone. It's like, oh, but you live, you have a home and you have this and you have that. And it's like, yeah, but inside, like everything is on fire. Like
Yeah. Yep.
everything looks horrendous. And I will tell you this quick story where I might have explained it on here before, where I was with my mom one time, and I'm in my head, I'm fighting so many wars. I don't know what at the time because this is many years ago, but I'm in a really bad place. I'm fighting this, and whatever. I'm hating myself. We're at the grocery store. Some friend that she works with or knew comes up to her and says, "Hey, Pam," and they start talking. And she goes, "This is my son TJ," and he sticks his hand out, going, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" And I want to project like how I'm talking to you now and go, "Hey, buddy, what's going on? I'm TJ." And I was just like, "Hey, I'm TJ," like very like just sheepish and just like
Yeah.
I gave him no energy. Like if he thought I like was a dick, he had every right to feel that way because I gave him nothing. My handshake was just
Mm.
dead, and because I'm at war with myself. And I don't like I'm for the most part I'm like locked in my head. I'm not even like I'm on autopilot on the outside. So when I actually stick my hand out
Yeah.
to say hi to him, I give him nothing. It's whatever I had left in the tank, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
And it's like, but for the average person, they just might think, oh, he's just a dick, or whatever. Maybe he's one of those just kids that just don't, it doesn't like people, doesn't want to be around anybody. But it's like, it has nothing to do with any of that stuff. I mean, maybe some of that stuff is in there, but I am, like I said, everything inside is on fire, and I'm trying to find a way to put it out because I'm
Mm.
reflecting everything on the outside or inside is coming out on the outside. And, I look at myself in the mirror, I hate myself, I think I'm ugly, and I'm honing on my eyes because they look different, and I'm just doing all these things. Oh, you're skinny, you're this or that, and when that stuff builds up to the point where you just can't take yourself anymore, you can't take the life that you're living, no matter how lavish your life is, no matter how many people you have supporting you. You, like I said, internally, you're to some degree dead. Like you're just dead inside, and you're losing so much of yourself. And that's when you start to like look at yourself and you go, not even just like a physical trait, like look at yourself whether you're attractive or not. When you look at yourself and you have these thoughts of hurting other people or whatever, anyone,
Yeah.
that's when you start to go, wow, I'm a monster and I don't deserve to live. Like people, and you start to think that everyone else, they would be better off without you because this is how you feel inside. It's like if they knew how I felt, they wouldn't want to be in my life. So let's just end this so I don't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. I mean, I looked at myself when I was growing up, and I mean, I didn't go through what you went through, but I looked at myself growing up, and I was, like, disgusted by myself because of what happened that was out of my control. But it was my life, and it was so messed up that it reflected on the outside. Like being orphaned, going through everything that I went through. I mean, after my father died, I didn't talk for 6 months. I was a mute, and a lot of time after that, I was I was people described me as shy, like you were saying, like shaking the guy's hand. Like I would, you know, say hi, but hi, not like progressing. Like now, I had a friend of mine a few months ago that I was out with, and we were walking by people, and I was saying, "Hi, how you doing?" Just outside in the park and enjoying life. And he's like, "Do you know them?" No. Like, why are you saying hi to them? Because they're there.
yeah, right.
you
Common
know, I,
decency.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that's lost. Not to go off topic, but I think that's lost.
No, for sure. I
Like,
mean, look at you and
yeah,
I have tragic stories, but we're still here trying to help people. And I've said this about the disability community where we're the perceived broken people because something on us is broken, yet we're the ones that are always trying to help people. And it's like when you look around, like I could put myself in your shoes, even if I haven't been through everything you've been through. Same with you, with me, and it's very easy for us to just be empathetic and just listen to each other and say, hey, man, like like because I genuinely have feelings for your story. Like I love what you're saying, and I love your honesty, and I just met you, and it's
Yeah.
but like most people can't do that because they're so selfish and they're only looking at their problems, and it's like, do you understand? Like you're not the only one. You're not even close to being the only one. Regardless of what it is, it doesn't have to be the same. It doesn't have to be COVID or anything. It could be something totally different. We're all going through some
Yeah.
shit. Can we like be nicer to it? Hold a door for somebody. Say hi. Smile a little bit. Just stop having
Mm.
your biases towards whatever, whether it's race or whatever horse shit. Like, can we just try to be? Let's just try, because I think that was the one thing that 9/11 did. Like everybody, yes, there was some discrimination towards Muslims, and I don't agree with that, but we were
Right.
nicer to each other because we had to support each other because we didn't want that to happen to us again because we got screwed, and they came and took advantage of a loophole and an open. We left ourselves open, and so then we were
Yeah.
like, we can't just have somebody coming on our planes and just throwing us into buildings. So it's like we have to be nicer to each other. Screw the white black thing or woman man thing. Like we have to, hey man, what's that guy doing over there? I don't know. Let me look. And then you're communicating, and then eventually
Yeah.
people forgot, and that went away, and we went back to let's kill each other again. And it's like
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
right.
That's
Yeah, there's a lot missing.
there is a lot missing. Like going back to the active shooter, there's something is not that I'm condoning it at all, but there is something missing out of that person's life that if they had it, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. But nobody ever offered to support them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Like a lot of it is mental health, and a lot of the mental health is untreated.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by it.
Well, we got to
Uh,
stop. We have to stop looking at people that we don't understand and we just call them crazy.
yeah,
And there are
yeah,
some crazy people, but a lot of times crazy people are also sane. Like some of the smartest people are serial killers. Like when they go back to like
yeah,
Jeffrey Dahmer and some of these guys, like they are super smart. They weren't dumb. Like they got away with it for a long time, but they were also geniuses in their own right. And and then when they start to study some of the brains of the really smart people in time, it's like, yeah, like these guys, they had their own problems. Like Edgar Allan Poe is a very dark person. If you look at all his stories and his poems, they're really dark, but he was a brilliant
mm,
guy. Like no one was doing what he was doing back then, but he was a
yeah, yep,
super dark guy. And because again, back then people didn't even live long, and it's there's just so much to it. And now we have so many amenities. There's so much we have to our availability. It's like, oh, okay, I could just go do this. I could do that, and nothing is ever good enough for us. And that's why it sucks because like when you're again back to like our vulnerability when we're children, everything is simple. It's the same way I say with children like or people with special needs. Like they are like the form of us that we all should strive to be in some way because they don't need much. They want love. They want to be happy. They just want to enjoy
yeah,
the few things that they enjoy in life. But we aren't happy with anything. It's like, oh, like I'm joking when I kind of say this, but like every time I go to somewhere, my grandma's like, oh, this needs salt, this needs that. I'm like, grandma, like it's fine, like it's like, yeah, but it would be better with salt. It's like, I guess, but just eat your damn salad or whatever she's eating. And sometimes
yeah,
we're just so not satisfied. It's unfortunate. That's like empathy is another thing that's so missing. Like we just can't look at somebody who's struggling with anything, and it's just like, but they don't know what I'm
yeah,
going through. It's like stop comparing your story. Like that person is hurting some way, shape, or form, physically, mentally, emotionally. They're hurting one way or another. Just care, man. Open the damn door for that person. Like
yeah,
Jesus.
yeah, yeah.
You know, it's like as a person with a visually impairment, and I do another job where I'm always lifting heavy things. And I take stuff into vending machines, but in rest areas. And so I have like giant, like a cart full of soda and chips and all these things. And it's like, you know how many people have left the door just right in my face? Forget my visually impairment. Just as a person, they don't know I'm visually impaired, some of them, but it's like there's
Yeah.
no care in the world, but then yet I'm the one holding the door for the elderly or for a woman or for a child. And I'm the one with all the heavy equipment. And half the time people don't even look back. They just think, oh, the door just opened by itself. It's like, no,
Yeah.
man, come on. The like,
Yeah.
and then that's when you start to reflect negatively towards the world. Because that's when you're like, well, screw this world. Like, and
Mm.
you know, you have setbacks. I'm sure you have, where you have a moment with somebody in a store somewhere and they're doing something that just bugs the shit out of you. And you're like, oh,
Oh yeah.
this is why I've always hated people. And
Yep. Yep.
but you have to check yourself, like you just do. You have to really look at yourself and just say, look, you have to self-reflect and say, look, all right, we're having a moment here. This person does suck, but that's just one person, and we'll move on.
Yeah.
But I'm like, my grandma, she's stuck in her ways. I love my grandma, don't get me wrong. She's 90 years old. She's stuck in her ways. She's a very independent. She does a lot of amazing things, and she really is one of my idols. But
Mm.
she is stuck in her ways, and she thinks I'm 90. People should move out of my way. Like, people should just levitate. Like, if I want to look at my grocery list on my phone, I'm gonna sit here in front of 10 people, and it doesn't matter if they're behind me. Like, she has no real manners, and it bugs the
Mm.
hell out of me. So that when I'm trying to teach her, like, grandma, why don't you be nice to these people? Then she brings up, well, no one else is doing it in here, which is a good point, but it's not what I'm getting at, because I don't care what other people are doing. But she's right, because everyone else around us is a dick, or have more than half of them, because they don't care. They're not respecting that she is 90. They're not respecting that she's a woman, or that they should let her go first or let anyone go first. They're all about
Right.
me, me,
Right.
me, me. And so how am I to teach a
Mm.
90-year-old woman who's stuck in her ways when my examples, there's very few of them, because everyone around us is doing the same thing she's doing, except they don't have the luxury to say that they're 90. So it's a conundrum that you're in, like, because I want my grandma to be better and just to be nicer to people, because her negative energy, because I'm with her, brings it towards me, because now everyone thinks, oh, well, why isn't he like taking care of her? Why isn't he, like, I'm the one supposed to set her straight? And it's like, hey,
Right.
she is who she is. And so people look at me like I'm the problem, and I'm trying to be more positive in my life, but it's hard because she can be very negative, because she has seen a lot of things in her 90 years. But again, like I
Oh
said,
yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
but like I said, there's no one. Like, I can't really say, grandma, well, be like that woman over there, because there's not many of them over there doing the right thing. And so you're in this world where everybody's
Mm.
just like at each other's throats, and no one wants to care. And look, there's some good people out here, but there's so many that are just being bad examples, and just
Yeah. Definitely.
in everyday life. Like, the grocery store is like a
Yeah.
war zone,
No. Yeah. Definitely. Yep.
especially because of COVID,
Especially now when things are letting up.
for sure.
You, yeah.
Because you got that dick, remember when toilet paper was running out, and it's like, oh, so I'm just gonna go buy 13 things of toilet paper. It's like, why'd you think like that? Like, you only have
Mm.
one ass to wipe, unless you have a couple, but it doesn't matter. Like, why would you think to just go buy 13 things of toilet paper, because you don't want to round, you don't give a shit about anyone else. Like, you don't, like, just,
Right.
I'm not saying don't think of buying ahead and buying a couple. Like, sure, you're preparing, but don't be so selfish, man. You know that this grocery store just got all that toilet paper in, and you're gonna go buy all of it. It's sad. It really is.
Yeah.
But
No. Definitely. Definitely. I was in Walmart the other day, and there's people going in and out of, just taking up the whole aisles, not giving people any room to get by. And
God, yeah.
there were these four guys, probably in their 20s, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
that were just deliberately taking up the whole aisle. And I walked down the aisle, and I'm like, excuse me, guys. And I had my army hat on and all that. And I walked right to them,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, well, excuse us. And one of them's like, oh, my father left me. I'm like, where did that come from? My father left me.
Okay.
Part of me was like, oh, yeah, well, mine died. So there you are. But like why why take up the whole aisle, and then when somebody excuses themselves to get by, you gotta be like uh you know an idiot.
Yeah.
It's like, really, why you know.
Was that his excuse? Like, oh, I'm going through something right now, so that's why I'm being a dick.
No, he was like, oh well, my father left me, like saying that it was I guess kind of an excuse of being a dick, but it
Okay.
was
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh
like
God.
I don't even know if his father really left him,
Right. Oh,
you know, but yeah,
fair enough. Yeah.
and
Ew, that's
yeah,
gross.
and I felt like turning around and saying, yeah, well, mine died, and have a good life, you know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But like, look, and then they're in like the electronics department, and they're raising holy hell. And I bought I seen a couple of aisles over, and I'm like, okay, I'm leaving now, and that cop is gonna come over and he's gonna tell them to get out. And as I was packing my groceries into my truck, the kids were walking out. So hopefully he did say something to them.
Yeah. It's there's some common courtesy, and that's another thing. It's just man, like, come on. Like the people who you notice the people, especially it's more of a younger thing now, but the people who are talking on their phone on speaker, like in stores,
Yeah,
and you're like, dude, what are you or FaceTiming? Like, what are you doing? Like you're in public. Like there's you know how many great headphones I have AirPods. They fit in your ear. You barely see them. I understand having a
yeah,
I can live with you having a conversation, even if you're loud, even if it's just you. But the fact that you're actually putting your phone on speaker and you're holding it and you're at the store and just like now you're having a full on conversation. There was a woman that was at my grocery store. She's having a sexual conversation with her boyfriend, and
oh jeez,
I'm just like, look, I mean, whatever. We're guys, and you're curious and you're listening, but you're like, are you shitting me? Like, I mean, in some ways, you're like, wow, you have the balls to do this, but also like you just have no morals. Like you don't care. Like you don't give a shit who's
yeah,
around. And I don't know. Like, come on. Like
yeah,
think here. Like we're buying. I'm trying to buy roasted turkey, and you're sitting here talking about this. Like I guess, but
yep, yep.
it's yeah. But anyway, so what made you want to serve?
Well, my father was in the military, and so he was in World War II.
Okay.
Yeah, he would have been. He would have been. I think he would have turned 100 this year.
Wow.
So yeah, but he was in World War II, and my grandfather was in World War II, and in the Navy, and I come from a long line of military. But the thing that really made me do it was I got really into crack cocaine
What is it?
and drinking crack
Oh,
cocaine.
crack cocaine. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and drinking and partying and having fun, and the cocaine got a bit much. And my aunt that I lived with told me, get out, get a job, and don't come back. And I needed that at that time, So I I went out. I joined the military. I came back. Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
No, you're good, buddy. Take your
Excuse
time.
me.
Take your
Hope we can edit that out.
time. You're good. Good. Do your thing. We all have our moments. I had a moment where, and she became a really good friend of mine, and she's telling a huge story, and she's towards the end of her story, and it's getting really emotional, and I thought I muted the mic and I just burp. And I
Oh,
realized
jeez.
no, and I couldn't really edit it out because she's talking. So it was like a big chunk of her. I was like, oh, so I just had to kind of give a disclaimer in the beginning of the episode. Like, sorry for me being a pig. So go ahead. You're good.
All right.
But go ahead.
All right.
Go
So
ahead. I'm sorry. So you're coming back from serving.
yeah, no, I told her that I'm going in the military. I'm leaving in a month, and I'll be done. And she was like, well, I didn't mean that, but okay, you know. And so that's why I went into the military. And basic training was my detox on, you know,
It's
from
kind of
crack cocaine and drinking, for that matter.
it's kind of escape from your shittier version of your life. Like it was actually very cathartic and therapeutic for you, just to get away from like your actual other part of your life.
It was, yeah, but it was also very hard because of the detoxing. Like I often describe, my upper arms were the size of my wrists now
Hmm.
because of the drug use.
Oh,
So I was really, I'm actually surprised that they let me in the military.
because you're very scrawny and
But
out of shape.
yeah, yeah, yep, yep. But I went in and I fought harder than I ever have in my whole life. I think physically, anyway.
Oh, I'm sure it's taxing on you, but I'm assuming it's what you needed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Because you can't just go
yep,
over there and just bullshit. Like you could, but you're not gonna last long. They'll just send you home.
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Did you have
Yeah.
any withdrawals at that point from the cocaine?
I didn't, or from the alcohol, I didn't. Which I was kind of like I didn't have the jitters or anything like that, which I thought was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
But
Thank your lucky stars for that
yeah,
one.
yeah, I was lucky. That's what I contributed to luck.
Sure.
Yeah,
How long did you serve for?
3 years active duty, and when I was in, I um I was in Cuba for 6 months, riot control, and we had Cubans and Haitians that were trying to come over to the U.S.
Okay.
and they were coming over in nothing bigger than a cable. Whatever they could find that floated, they tried to get over here. And I actually still have a picture of a kid that he uh, he lost his entire family in the ocean, like
Uh,
mother, father, sister, brother, all that in the ocean. And the Navy picked him up, and he was alone. And yeah, we housed him in one of the camps until I believe he transitioned into uh, America with some family that was here.
do you feel
So
do you feel like when you saw that that was kind of like a weird reflection of like your life?
in a way, yeah, yeah. And I still have a picture of him, and I look at it at times, and I wonder where he is now. But I also am like, you know, thankful that we have what we have over here
Yeah, yeah.
in in the United States. Like a lot of people, um, they think that we have it so bad over here. But like I was just talking to earlier this week a podcast that's based in Australia, and we started talking about like the gun laws and in um, United States and all that, and we were like comparing like AR-15, like they won't even sell any AR-15 to a civilian over there,
All right.
and Uvalde was an 18-year-old kid with an AR-15. that he just bought. Like, how does that even happen?
Yeah. And for people who don't
Like,
know, that's like the consistent gun that's been in a lot of these shooting sprees, these school shootings or wherever they end up. A lot of times that's the consistent weapon.
yeah, yes, yeah. And I remember myself, like a couple of years after getting out of my homeless situation, and I spent time in psych in the psych ward, the mental health facility, in uh the VA in Brockton, Massachusetts, and I I applied for the Class A license to carry without restriction, not thinking I would get it. I needed it for work, but I didn't think I would get it, and I got it. Now I think that, like, should I have got it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I should have, but like, yeah, I think that's a big problem that we're having in the United States. Is that we're not really focusing on um, mental health and fixing people. We're just, oh, he's got depression, he's fine. Let's give him an AR-15.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think a
it's,
lot of the examples too of people who are for guns are these just militant, crazy gun nuts that are just like guns are life, and it's kind of like how some people are really anti stoning, like smoking weed, and there's really nothing wrong with it whether you do it or don't. But it's these 420 friendly assholes that are just like, oh, weed is life, and it's like, of course you do it on Hitler's birthday, and it's all this shit, and you just like hate them
mhm.
from the outside because you're like, oh, you're just such a bad representation of what these people are trying to fight for, because you could bring up medical use and all these different things of why it's good for mental health and all these things, but they don't bring that up. They just bring it up that it's just, oh, it takes you to another dimension and all this bullshit, and you're like, all right, man, I'm tired of
Yeah,
hearing your nonsense. And it's the same thing with the gun example, where it's just like there are people that can tell you like, yeah, the reason why I carry a gun is just for my safety and just for my family and this and this and this and that. But it's always these guys that are just so pro, and a lot of times it's uh, there's some religion in it, or there's some politics that have to deal with it, and people don't want to hear that shit. They just want real life scenarios of why I should have this, and they're just
yeah,
it's kind of the stereotype that really ruins it for other people, where people end up being anti something just based off of what the stereotype is, and they go, oh, well, I don't want to deal with that, and not realizing that the majority of people who are that stereotype, or that fall within that stereotype, really are just good people and don't really have any interest. They just don't feel like speaking up about it, because some of it does sound kind of douchey on the outside. It's just like, look, man, and some people don't know how to convey it to the audience. It's just like, hey, I have a gun because I don't want to die, and I just want to protect my family. That's it. That's all the reason why I have a gun. I have no interest in going into a school. I'm not going to give my guns to my kids, or,
yeah,
I'm very safe with my weapons and all that. Um, but yeah, the gun issue has gotten so out of hand, and the mental health stuff is only implemented when a kid shoots up a school. They don't talk.
yeah,
They don't talk about the urban crime where kids are killing each other every day. There, they don't talk about just how many. I mean, they don't even talk about how we as a country are constantly trading guns with Mexico for drugs and all that. Like, there's a lot of corruption and
yeah.
bullshit that goes into it. It's just
No, yeah, definitely.
we only know how to really compute the stuff that's like thrown in our face, that the media throws. Like, oh no, we definitely don't like children being shot. But it's like, yeah, but adults are being shot all the time, and you don't give a shit about them. And sometimes it's a racial thing, and there's so many components to it. This is a huge gray area that we just don't want to jump into, because it really hits you hard, and there's a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings that you're supposed to feel. And that's why we don't really get to the root of any of these subjects, because it's like, oh, it's easier just to say, well, mental health, or, oh, hey, it's guns are bad. Like, it's easy to say that, ABC,
Yeah,
but it's never that. You have to talk about all of it, because it's like same with
yeah, definitely.
Same with like the gang violence and the police. It's easy to say the police are bad, but they're not all bad. It's easy to say that like, oh, they go in these neighborhoods and they just pull black kids over and they beat them and shoot them. It's easy to say that, but that's not all. That's a lot of that isn't true. That it does definitely happen and it shouldn't happen. But that you don't understand the
Yeah,
job that they have. They have to go into neighborhoods where people are dying every day, and these kids are carrying illegal firearms that they got from God knows who, and they're going to be shot at. There's drugs sold, and a lot of times they have to just allow the drug selling. They have to allow a lot of these things, but they have to be. They want to make it home at night, and they have to think about their kids. They have to think about anybody that they love. Just even if they want to go home and just watch the news, they have to survive. And
yeah,
living in a city that I used to live in, Philadelphia, which is the nickname for it is Philadelphia, they're averaging, 2 murders to 3 murders a day. But you can't just ignore that and just go, oh, well, let's just throw police in there and just say, oh, they're supposed to be good and wholesome all the time. Like they see a lot of shit, like you did, like and more, because they see it on a daily basis and it's a constant. They don't get to come. They come
yeah,
home. Their come home is after a long shift, and they put their gun away and all that. And I get it. There's a lot of dick police, but we can't just write them off just because some assholes decided to pull a black guy over and beat him with a stick, like, or shoot them. Like it's wrong. It really is. But there's so many convoluting arguments, especially with guns. And when you throw mental health in the middle, it's it's crazy.
yeah, definitely.
Um,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Go ahead.
it's really crazy.
So I was gonna ask you, what do you think is like the biggest contribution to your PTSD for serving or anything in your life, really?
My biggest contribution.
Yeah, what do you think that really? I mean, I'm sure there's a
Yeah,
plethora of things, but I mean, is there a few things that stick out to you that really kind of screwed you up, that made you, when you came back into the real world or whatever you want to call it?
yeah.
Do you feel like there's a few things, whether it was that boy, do you feel like there's just a few things that really triggered your PTSD that really, exacerbated it and made it stronger?
One of them would be a tank explosion that I was in. That really shook me. Like, well, I'll tell you the story. We were in the National Training Center in California, and we were firing our weapons downrange. Shooting our Bradley 25 millimeter gun down at targets down at the end of the range. And the turret blew up. There was something wrong with the gun that we didn't realize was wrong with the gun. And a round got lost in. And when it went to fire, it exploded. And all I remember is seeing the barrel like flying off the gun as the tank is filling up with smoke, as my gunner and my BC are screaming because they just got severely burned and blinded for I think like 6 months. And yeah, that was one of them. And the reason why is because of the trigger of my, if I hear a loud bang
Mm-hmm.
or I smell gasoline or something like that, I freeze,
Mm.
you know, or I get a really bad headache. Like that diesel gasoline will give me a severe headache.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another one would be a dog attack. Actually, that I was in. That I went back to the military after my home was spent for a couple of years, and we were in the Cape, and I think it's um, Fort George or something over there by the Cape. I forget what it's called, but some civilians allowed, uh, or some civilians brought a dog onto the base, and they were drinking on base, and the dog escaped. and the dog um, attacked, like bit 7 or 8 different soldiers before getting to me. I remember I was in headquarters company and I had to walk down a field and into some woods in a path to get to the bathroom. And as I'm getting into the woods, I'm hearing rah, rah, rah. I'm like, the hell is there an MP out there? And then the dog came charging at me. This is like a Rottweiler Doberman mix.
Oh, so it's big and a problem.
Yeah, big and strong and big teeth.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I flipped my M16. It didn't have any rounds in it. I flipped the M16 so the butt was facing the dog. The end of the weapon that you put your shoulder on
Right,
is
right.
the butt.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Just for your listeners.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and so I aimed that at the dog, and I matched the dog's movements, so it couldn't attack me until help came. Because once the people at the other end of the field seen what was going on, they came running. And so ever since then, like even my own dog, if it barks, I like jump out of my skin. Um, I've had a couple of dog attacks after that, and I'm actually surprised at myself because I still knew enough to, stay focused, stay level-headed, and be, have something to block its path or, not run. Like I remember one time I was over a friend's house, and he's an elderly guy, and I was helping him move his push lawnmower, and then he started the lawnmower, and a boxer 2 houses down heard it, seen me because there's no fences, came running, and he was just like, "I'm gonna eat you." And I remember just uh, there was a wheelbarrow there, and I just kept the wheelbarrow in between the two of us until the owner came running right behind the dog and was able to get the dog. But another one too would have been the first thing that happened that gave me my PTSD would be my mother's death.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, no, I
yeah,
was wondering because I mean, PTSD. But a lot of times when people talk about PTSD, most people think it's always attributed with people who serve, even though you can get many forms of different PTSD. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, you have so many things within your story that kind of can add to it. So this is a question I want to like. How do you feel that like people from the military are treated in this country as a person who went homeless? Because people have different theories of it, and this is just your opinion. But I mean,
I
there's
think now they're treated a lot better than they were years ago, like decades ago, like the '60s. Coming home from Vietnam, they were spit on and all that. And now we have veterans facilities that house veterans, uh, homeless veterans. I was homeless, quote unquote homeless, for 5 years, but only on the streets for a few months, and then I was in veteran shelters the rest of the time. And back then they didn't have that, to my knowledge. And on the other side of that, though, they don't understand PTSD. Like, there's a veterans place called Veterans Inc. that is um, kind of sort of downtown in Worcester, and people drive by there and see the homeless people there that have PTSD, and you hear like, "Oh, go out and get a job. Nothing's wrong with you," because they're not missing a limb or any. They're not physically where you can see something wrong with them.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So that aspect needs a lot of help.
I've
You
just
know.
heard from a lot of other soldiers and stuff like that. There's still more that they can do because we tend
Oh, there is.
to we tend to say like, oh, thank you for your service and all that, but then a lot of people come back, especially the ones that are missing the limbs and have the major PTSD and are all busted up, and then they're just a lot of them end up homeless. A lot of them end up just going through a lot. They go to jail or they end up with a lot of problems, and there's no one looking out after them. And there's a lot of these organizations that are supposedly the money goes to these guys, and not all of them
Yeah.
are truthful. So that's kind of where
No,
I was getting at.
I can name a couple that aren't truthful,
Yeah.
but there's more that are.
Okay.
I'll say the VA. When I first became homeless, I needed money, so they got me non-service connected, a non-service connected pension, which was only like $1,000 a month. When I had everything else that was wrong with me at that time, they didn't look at any of my military service. They just looked at, oh, he had a rough life. We're going to give him the non-service connected. Now I'm 80% service connected, looking at 100 probably in a couple of weeks. But the thing about the VA is that you have to know a certain jargon in order to get anywhere with them. Like I know a guy now who owns Blue Cord Patriots. It's a place that helps veterans get the benefits that they deserve.
Okay.
And that guy taught me the proper way to talk to the VA. Because if you don't talk to them the proper way that they want you to talk to them, they fluff you up.
Hmm.
And then 22 veterans die of suicide every day, daily, because of the help that they're not getting. So yeah, in that aspect, it is better than it was in the 60s.
Sure.
But it still has a long way to go.
Okay. So part two to this, how do you feel the homeless are treated in this country?
Homeless veterans or homeless in general?
Overall. Both, but
Okay.
I mean mainly overall because because as a person with a disability, one of the things that I was eventually wanted to kind of do something with someone who was homeless, and I found someone. She ended up being blind too, and I wasn't looking for that, but I really wanted to see because I see how homeless people are treated, and they're treated like they're freaks and that they're all addicts, and they all have like they're so far from society. But the reality is like there are only one or two mistakes, and they're just out on the street. And some of these these people all have families, and they just had really bad luck. A lot of them, and And so I see how people are treated, how people treat them. So as a person who has that experience, beyond just being a veteran, how do you feel like homeless people really are treated?
I think you're looked at like a leper.
Yeah, right. Like you almost could if you touch them, you can become homeless.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Sure.
And people of privilege, people that have everything that they want in life, don't understand that it is just one or two things that could happen to you that could put you in that situation.
Yeah.
Like I was having a conversation with people on Facebook the other day about we have a lot of homeless people in Worcester and
Massachusetts.
Yeah,
okay.
Yep. And we were talking about it, and they're like, oh, they're all addicts and all they're dropping the needles around here and there and everywhere. And it's like, A, they're not all homeless. And then I told them that I was homeless, and everyone was like, wow, you're the exception. Thank you for your service and this and that. And like, I'm not really the exception.
Yeah.
You just have a one way of looking at it when there's a lot of different ways to look at it. Like, I think mental health over over addiction is one of the main reasons why people are homeless.
Sure. Yeah. But I think
Like,
as I said on the last episode, I think we vilify them so much, homeless people, because
oh yeah,
we're so afraid to realize how human they are, like how close to us they are. I say the same thing with people with disabilities. Like people just think like, oh, you're just born with some freakish accident. Like that couldn't happen to me because I'm alive. I've been around for 30 years. No, man, you could just get hit by a car and you're disabled. Something you could
yeah,
fall off your table or whatever. I don't know why you're on a table, but you could fall off a ladder and be paralyzed. And the same thing with homeless. You can make a couple bad decisions. I know a guy who his boyfriend died and left him with all the medical bills. And the one who
mm,
died was the one who took care of all the finances. And all of a sudden now he has to take care of everything. And then he had cancer himself. And then now he has to take care of his own medical bills on top of that. And it's like, yeah, man. And he never became homeless, but he could have. And he's hung in there and he's fighting, but it's not easy. And I think everyone just thinks, oh, they drank and did drugs their whole life. No, a lot of times they end up doing drugs and alcohol or drugs and alcohol afterwards. And again, there are people who were addicts and that's what caused them to go homeless, but that's the stereotype that people think, that they want them to just be these crazy monsters who are just running around. They'll stab you and they'll rob you, and rape you, and do all these things.
yeah,
And again, that does happen, but
oh yeah,
there's a lot of people that are they're lost because they came home, whether it's from serving, or they came home, maybe their spouse cheated on them and they were the breadwinner and they kicked them out, and maybe they lost their job at the same time, and now they don't have a whole lot of friends because all his friends were her friends, and now he's out on the
yeah,
street and now he's got to find, and he's out. He's been out there for 3 months now. Now he's almost conditioned just to live out in the wild. And
yeah,
it's almost kind of the reverse of an animal that's meant to be in the wild that gets caged up. It's like you now have a different mentality and you don't know how to go back to your other reality.
definitely, yeah, yeah. And like you said, a lot of people get conditioned um, to live that way, and they don't see a way out. A lot of people. I'll drive around Worcester and I'll give them one of my business cards for my books, my website. And I'll say, hey, look, if you are really serious about getting help, really serious about getting help, call me. And I will set you up with, I know multiple organizations in in the Worcester area. And sometimes I do get calls, but a lot of times I don't too. And I'm like, why not take advantage of that opportunity? Because a lot of them are conditioned and they don't think that they can have that better life.
Yeah. Do you almost? And again, I'm asking you. I don't know, but do you feel it's almost like you have to treat it like an addict in itself? Forget the drugs and the alcohol, but just you're so used to something, and you're just used to this one type of way of living, and every time you try to go forward, you get stuck in the quicksand. You get pulled down. So it's almost like being an addict, where yeah, it sounds nice to just quit. It sounds nice to just be sober, or it sounds nice to have a home and to get out of this mentality, but you're stuck. Like you don't see a way around it because this is how you live. And it's the same thing like if you were an addict, you only know how to like. It sounds good, but every time you know, a couple hours off of it, you feel like shit. You're like, nah. And
Yeah,
when you're homeless, you look at the world and you're like, yeah, I would love to get into a home. I'd love to have a job, but nah, like that's not possible. You know, like I don't know.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
yep, yep. No, a lot of I used to think that way myself. They're
What?
like, this is my life, and this is all my life is going to be.
Yeah.
You know,
What changed your mentality or your mindset?
really, seeing others suffer. You know, and with that, I gained empathy, and with that, that pushed me to like get out of my homeless situation, so I can help people, and also the veterans facilities that I was in, you know, helped me to get back on my feet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they are good for that definitely. But like I tell people now, working with away recovery care, I say you gotta want it as much as you want the air you breathe,
Sure.
and you gotta want it for you. You don't have you can't want it for your son, your daughter, your wife, anybody. You gotta want it for you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's got to be hard because sometimes some of us are very selfless, and you know, for me, I mean, I'm always constantly dealing with my own problems, and I don't
Mm.
necessarily address them a lot. And recently, I kind of been taking care of my own health, and I kind of cut some. I didn't cut them out, but I wasn't as persistent on checking on them. And some people kind of got like, oh, well, I guess you're just not as interested, like a girl. And it's like, it's not that. I never take time for me, and I needed time to just deal with my shit because I'm so bent on trying to help people, and I'm not trying to make myself sound good. I really try to do as much good as I can, but when I do that, I don't really focus on me. I'm focused on other people, and
Yeah.
you really have to take some time to just go like, okay, how much do you want to be happy? How much do you want this particular thing? Now, I've never been homeless, but I have had money issues. You know, when I was young with my mom, we had, you know, we didn't have a whole lot of money. I wouldn't say completely poor, but we were struggling, and
Yeah.
you know, yeah. So you know how to live on that side of the track, and it's just little life experiences like that. It teaches you to just be humble and try to. Again, I always say, like, I hate when people say they're open minded because most people aren't. They say they're open minded, but then you throw something at them and you're like, oh, okay, really? You're not open minded. You know, you could say like
Yeah.
something about every community and every race and everything in a room, and then you land on their one thing that triggers them. They're like, oh, I can't take this. It's like, well, then you're not open minded, are you? Like,
Yeah. Exactly.
you know, so,
Yeah.
but yeah,
That's true. Yeah.
it's good that you have to take care of yourself, and it's I mean it's you definitely made a drastic change because you know I'm sure you for a while you probably felt like you were drowning out there. You were just lost.
No. Yeah. Definitely. Growing up, I really did. My friends really saved my life. Like I was I was just lost, and I ran into this group of friends, and we became like brothers.
Yeah,
You know, and even to this day, you know we're still close. Like we just had a 20-year reunion, first time seeing each other in 20 years,
wow.
and it was like picking up the next day. You know, like just you know, I couldn't even explain it to you, but it was like we that 20-year gap didn't matter. We just went back to being who we were, and you know, it
That's
was an
cool.
amazing day that we had.
Nah, that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's when you know you really care. Like people you care about them, and you're meant like they're meant to be in your life is when you can go away from them for a decent period of time and then come back, and it's like, oh, you just pick right back up.
yeah,
Um, So my last question, kind of towards the homeless part. Did you, while you were out there, or now even just in hindsight, did you learn to appreciate your younger years when you were poor but you had a home? Like, or did you feel like being out homeless was better? I don't know. I mean, of course you had a father around, but I mean, did you ever learn to
Yeah.
appreciate like the fact that you did have a home? You didn't have a lot of money, but at least you had a place to stay.
Oh, now I appreciate that definitely. I mean, I have a lot of my youth. I black out. Like I don't remember the part that I was telling you about being mute for 6 months. I didn't know that until a couple of years ago when I was writing my book 10 Homes in 11 Years, and I talked to my sister, and she told me that I didn't talk to anybody, not even her. I had no idea about that.
No.
There's a lot that I blacked out, and yeah, these days I am thankful for you know that, for having a house, for um not being worse off than I was, but
Sure. And I don't mean into your current situation, but I meant as far as
yeah,
your homeless situation to your younger, because that's
yeah,
because
yeah. Like
we tend to think that our situation is the worst at its time, and then you don't know that it can get worse. And some people like you have had to see what worse could be like, and you did.
yeah, yeah. I mean, at that time I don't know if I can't answer that
No, that's fine.
because because I don't know what I was thinking back then.
Sure.
Really, yeah, but
Yeah.
being homeless was definitely worse than being, you know, in that situation in Texas and Arizona and all that. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I wanted to ask you this, and please know I'm not making fun of you. Do you have some sort of like a speech impediment?
Uh, Not really. I mean,
Maybe it's just the connection because it sounds more like you have like a slow like speech impediment. Like you sound fine, I understand you, but it just
yeah.
I didn't know if it was something from serving or anything. And trust me, please know I'm not making fun of you. I just
No,
was
no, no, no. No. Honestly, somebody else, that guy, Sean from Blue Court Patriot, um, asked me that.
okay.
And I guess it stems from having a TBI,
From having a what?
traumatic brain injury.
You had a traumatic brain injury. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, from when I was in that tank accident.
okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense then.
Yeah, yeah, yep, yep,
Because I have a few friends with traumatic brain injuries. Yeah, like I said,
yeah.
if I hope I didn't piss you off. I just want you to know I just was
No, 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 no,
I was
no.
because I wanted to because I sometimes I know you I'm sure you weren't, but I just wanted you to know I genuinely do care for you, and I just didn't want I know it was random, but I wanted to kind of people to know because I felt like something happened that you didn't share. And I felt like it was something in your story, but sometimes other people's stories get crossed, and I don't know if I don't want to just go like, "Hey, remember that time you had cancer?" You're like, "No, that wasn't me." Um, so it was easy.
Yeah,
It's easier just to kind of ask the obvious question, and so yeah, I was wondering because that makes a lot more sense because I've interviewed a few people with traumatic brain injuries and they have like a similar sound, um,
yeah,
and I was wondering if it had something to do with you serving because I felt like it did, but so much got said and I
yeah. And I living in Massachusetts, we don't say ours,
right, 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 right.
and like I sometimes think that I have like my own um what do you call it, accent,
Right, sure.
because I've lived in Massachusetts, I've lived in Colorado, I've been in almost every state. I've been in Hawaii. I think the only state I wasn't in or didn't drive to in my life is Alaska.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
You're
I
you're right though. Massachusetts, they have a really hard accent, and it's hard to. I mean, they try to compare it to like the New York accent, but it's totally different, and
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
it's totally different. You hear it. I mean, some of it, it's like, wow, what are they saying? Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I went.
you probably hear all the accents.
Well, since I moved out of Philly, yeah, I mean, but yeah, I've heard a lot of them, and again, I welcome them, but it's yeah, like I said, I didn't, I had a feeling there was something else missing in your story that we hadn't covered, and I wanted to, because like I said, there's so many things that get crossed in my mind where it's just like, okay, I know where I met you, I know your name, I know majority of your story, but there's something in there, and then it's like, oh, traumatic brain injury, there you go, and then that brought me back to kind of what I was hearing, and I'm like, okay, because I could understand you fine, but I knew there was something that was there. But yeah, traumatic brain injuries. Those are. Did you when that happened? Did you lose any kind of uh, ability to? Because I know a lot of the friends I have. One, she lost like her whole one side is paralyzed. Did you have any real effects from that injury, other than your ability, like your speech?
Well, I have some high pitch hearing loss.
Oh, okay.
I have headaches still to this day, and that happened in like '95. So yeah, I have migraines like once or twice a week, and yeah, so that I I have the speech.
Yeah.
I know I blacked out when that happened. When it was weird. I blacked out, but yet I reacted. Like I don't remember getting out of my tank, the driver's seat, running around to the back of the tank after I opened up the hatch that lets me into where the gunner and the BC were, and I got them out.
Hmm.
I don't remember any of that, but
Wow.
people tell me that that's what I did.
Interesting.
So I have some memory loss because of that. And I think a lot of the memory loss that I do have is a combination of TBI and PTSD.
Yeah. Well, that blunt trauma that you just suffered to your head. You don't realize how much shit is up there and how much it's working and how it works
Yeah.
and you hear some of these stories where people go crazy. One of the ones that stood out to me is I was a big wrestling fan as a kid, and the wrestler Chris Benoit, who ended up killing his whole family. Um, and they're a
Oh
lot.
yeah.
The theory is that he had so many concussions because he had this move, and then again I'm putting this together, but he had this move where he would jump off the top of the rope and he would headbutt you. Um, and
Mm,
again, that alone wouldn't screw you up. But a lot of times, to kind of keep the story going, because that was one of his finishing moves, guys would move out of the way. So then his head would collide with the mat. Now, people could say wrestling is fake all you want. And yeah, maybe the mats are a little padded, but they're still ground. Like, it's still the ground. It's still hard.
yeah.
And in these, and even if you want to just talk about the shows that were on television, that's twice a week. But there was all these dark
Yeah.
shows. He did this. I mean, he did this thousands of times, and he had so much damage to his head. And that's what they talk about with these football players, the CTE and all that. And these guys he ended up killing his whole family. And every wrestler that loved this guy said that we would have allowed our kids to stay with him. And that says something.
Mm,
And it's like the guy took so much damage to his brain that eventually he just lost it and did something that no one would have ever thought would have happened. And obviously, yours was like a one-time thing, but one major just blow to the head could really set you back many years, if not your whole life.
oh yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Look at I'm trying to think of the guy's name, but way back in the old Western days, there was a guy that got a barb from a they're working on setting railroads, and he got a beam, like a metal beam, through his skull,
Mm.
and he survived it. And before before that happened, I guess he was like a really nice guy. Everybody loved him, this and that, and After that happened, he turned into a jerk, more or less,
Sure.
like angry all the time and snapping at people and this and that. And it was because of, now they figured out that it was because of the way that the beam went into the guy's head.
Yeah. Which
It
could
affected his, yeah, his way of thinking.
which could have killed him, but it did something
Yeah,
else. And
yeah,
yeah, it's crazy.
yeah. Like it was a miracle that he was alive. But like a lot of other head trauma and even PTSD, you might be alive, but you're not the same person.
Sure. Yeah. Um.
Yeah.
So I think this is probably the most important question, one of the last ones I want to ask you. But the most important question
Okay.
is, how long have you been sober?
30 years now.
That's awesome, man. Good for you.
Thank you.
Good,
Yeah.
good for you. Feel you feel
Yep.
you haven't had any like urges?
I crack cocaine. No. Um.
It's probably easier to stay away from that.
Yeah. I have had a beer or two within the 30 years.
Okay. And that's not tempting?
Yeah. It's not tempting, and the reason that it's not tempting is because normally, if I if I do have one, like I'll go to the movies with my brother maybe once every 3 months or so, and we'll go out to eat beforehand, and I'll have one beer with him, and then we'll go into the movie theater, sit for 2 hours. By the time I get out of the movie theater, that beer is through me, you know, and then I go home and I go to sleep.
Sure.
And I probably average maybe a 6 pack in a year. Past couple of years, because of COVID, I've actually not had any, because we I think we went to one movie and we didn't go out to eat beforehand. But is it, and for the people in addiction recovery that might be listening, there's a difference between abstinence and recovery. Abstinence is not having any alcohol at all, or any drug use at all. Recovery is working that recovery.
Yeah. But
And
would you agree though that there are some people that couldn't even take one? Like
oh yeah,
some
yeah,
people have to stay abstinent to stay recovered because you're
yeah,
somehow strong enough to be able to know to take one. But there are people who that can't even go to bars because of the smell or the clinking of the glass that just triggers something for them.
yeah. And I think the reason that I am able to have one is it's decades later.
Sure.
You know, I mean, if I was having one right off the bat, if I was having a 6 pack a year right off the bat, that would have turned into a 12 pack or a case or this or that. It would have kept on building up. But because I mean, I've got more years in addiction recovery than a lot of people that I support have had birthdays.
Sure.
You know, it's because of the length of time. I think like you do need that length of time to be abstinent,
Yeah.
be sober, or now there's actually there is people, and professionally I can't condone it or not condone it, but there are a lot of people that want to regulate, want to have 2 beers, and that's all they're gonna have. I'll have two beers or 2 glasses of wine every other day,
Mhm.
and that's going to be my recovery.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I can't say if I agree with it or don't agree with it, but
Yeah. Can you so kind of wrapping up here, can you tell us kind of what you're doing today, why you are doing what you're doing, and then also promote your book and anything else you want to promote?
Yeah. Um, Now I'm uh, writing. I'm a writer, and I'm also working with a fantastic organization called Addiction Aware Recovery Center, which is an addiction um, facility that helps people where they're at. Like I'll go to a guy's house and sit with him and talk about addiction recovery, or there's a client that I play pool with every week while we're talking about addiction recovery. Um, but we have the client for a whole year, and I think what is spectacular about Away Recovery Care is that we have the client for so long because I've had clients in detoxes, in CSS, in um, extended living programs where I knew I didn't have enough time with the client and that they were going to go back out and use. But with Aware Recovery Care, they have a whole year with us, and we have some of the highest stats in um, in all of addiction recovery care, way more than AA. Not that I, I love AA, but yeah, we have really high stats as far as
Success.
success.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's great.
And I started this one because of my mother, and two because I had a cousin who passed away in 2016. His his drug of choice was heroin, and he went missing July of 2016, and he nobody could find him. I couldn't find him, and I'm a trained private investigator, and we had another professional investigator working on the team of people trying to find him, and it turned out that he was about 3 miles from here in the woods, and a hunter found his body. A hunter and a dog found his body.
Mm.
And by the time that they found the body, they had to do dental recognition to identify him.
He was out there so long, or
Yeah,
something start to eat him.
no, he was out there that long.
Okay.
Yeah, and there was lime around his body. And I don't know if you know what they use lime for, but to disguise the smell
Right.
of a dead body.
It can't be.
Yeah,
Yeah, it can't be good.
yeah. And since then, I started working in this field to learn about that other life. You know, and because I worked my own recovery, really not even realizing what I was doing when I was working my own recovery. You know, and then getting into this business, I learned all about addiction recovery, and I wrote a book on it. And but yeah, now this is probably what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's great. You found a passion. You're doing what you can with it.
Yeah, definitely.
what's your book?
I have seven books out.
Where can you get them anyway?
Lifelongexperience.net. There's one on addiction recovery, one on PTSD, one on changing a life through growth, and realizing that money is not the end all be all to success. And one is about dealing with loss, acceptance of losing a loved one. And I'm working on my next memoir right now.
That's great, man. I do want to say, like, I'm sorry for everything you have lost, but I'm very proud of everything you actually gained and what you're doing with it, because it's, I mean,
Same here. Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. It's, I'm sure
Well,
I mean, you've been close to death, but like how many people that have gone through what you've gone through or anything similar, like what I've gone through or others, just how many people don't make it. Obviously you almost
yeah,
didn't because you tried. And
yeah,
there's so many
yep,
people that try and they succeed. There's so many people that just try and they blow their head off, but they live and their life is never the same. There's people that just give up on themselves. But there's just a lot of people that just aren't here anymore because of, they didn't have they didn't have whoever was looking out for them. And, they didn't have that person that
yeah,
found them. Like you did,
yep,
and it's like the fact that you're still here and then you're actually doing something with it, even giving back to, I mean, you barely knew your mom, but you're giving back, and by helping people like her, it's
yeah,
just doing some good because you look out in this world. There's so many. The drug epidemic is not going away. The homeless population is not going away. All the things that you got to
right,
see firsthand is right in your face, and you get to see it every day.
yeah.
And you're finding a way to just make some change. My last like real question: do you like, as a person who has never been homeless and wants to like help, if there's any like really good ways, like an efficient way to like provide or help people who are homeless?
Um, the answer to that would be not money.
No.
And the reason that I say that is because, I mean, give them a dollar here, a dollar there, yes, maybe. But I don't know what they're going to use it for. Hopefully, they're going to use it to buy food or
Yeah.
to get shelter or something like that. But
I don't. I
a
don't.
lot of them,
I'm sorry. I don't just mean like an individual homeless person, but I mean like whether it's an organization. Like, because people, they say some of the things that homeless people need the most are socks and underwear and things like that. Like, is there
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
is there certain places or certain things to just to look for, like to know like what you should be supporting? Like, it should be is one of the most efficient ways is to give out food. And for me, I have a decent income. Like, I'd like to just help, but I don't want to just go up to some random homeless guy and go, here's $1,000. Like, I want to be able
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do
yeah.
something that impacts more than just one person.
Like I've worked in yeah, I volunteered in soup kitchens before.
Okay.
That's one thing. I mean, now that we have COVID, I don't even know if a lot of those are open anymore. But yeah, I volunteered in there, just serving food and talking to the people. The biggest thing that I can probably recommend is to let them know that they're not alone. You know,
Yeah.
it's not about the money. It's not about the this or the that. It's about letting them know that they're not alone
Sure.
and that there is help out there. Like one thing that I going back to suicide for a minute. One thing that I tell people is my suicide attempt was 20 years ago. My son is 10 now. You do the math.
Uh,
If I succeeded back then, we would both not be here.
right.
And I think about that now and I look at him and I'm like, thank God I got help when I needed it. And, now my life is so much better. I'm gonna be buying a house in a couple months.
Oh, good for you.
I have a beautiful truck, a beautiful son. I have to me, the perfect job. But back then, I was begging God to take my life because I thought I had nothing.
Yeah, and you had to
You
see
know?
what nothing was. Because
Yeah,
at that
yeah,
point, you
yeah,
probably there were some things down the pipe that were even worse than what you didn't have then. Like I said, you at one point you didn't have a whole lot of clothes and money, but then all of a sudden, then you didn't have a home, you didn't have food, and
yeah,
so he had.
yeah. And I now that and this is first time I'm going to say this, but I think now that the higher power, like I don't know, I know there's something higher than me out there. Let's just say that,
Yeah,
but I think that higher power was like, you think you have nothing? I'm going to show you nothing,
sure.
and then see what you do with it.
Yeah, you're being tested.
You know, that's probably what happened.
Yeah, absolutely being tested, and I mean, yeah, I mean, you could have failed, but you pulled through, and I mean, again, I don't I'm on the fence with a lot of this stuff, and I'm open ears to what is out there and who is above us and is taking care of us and looking out for us. But it's definitely something, and there's I do believe we are here for, like you and I, like we're here for a reason. We're having this conversation, and we don't necessarily know what, but at some point we'll figure it out, and it's
Yeah,
I haven't been able to predict. I was a super fucking shy kid. I never wanted to talk to anyone and be a leader and do anything. I wanted to hide, and now I want to speak for others and help others. So
yeah,
I wouldn't have predicted that.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was the same exact way. Yeah,
I wanted to die. I didn't want to live, and now I want to live. So I mean, everything is complete opposite. So I mean, it's kind of, yeah, it's
yeah. You're an inspiration.
yeah, it's
What you're doing is just amazing work.
I appreciate it, buddy. I appreciate it. But yeah,
Well,
man, I appreciate you for coming on. I really hope we can keep in touch and be friends and uh,
yeah,
support each other. I think you seem like a great dude. I'm just glad to have gotten to know you and share your story. But from here on out, we can just talk. I mean, hey, maybe we can do something down the road. Just have a conversation about something else. I mean, obviously, we have a lot to talk about beyond just our lives.
yeah, definitely.
But overall,
Yeah,
like nothing else has to be recorded. We could just talk and get to know each other more. And like I said, it's just good to have good people in our lives that provide good energy. And it's if you ever need somebody to talk to, if you are feeling shitty, I'm here anytime.
I appreciate that. Same here. Definitely.
It's good to hear, buddy.
Reach out anytime.
All right, that's great to hear. You keep up with the good work, and we'll talk soon. All right.
Alrighty. I'll talk to you later.
All right, brother.
Alrighty. Correct.
Ah, fantastic, guys. I know it was a long episode, but I didn't want to cut them off, man. It's just I just like to have the conversation. I know I should probably have a little more balance, and I should cut some stuff out and do this, but it's I like to have a real story. There's so many times I listen to other shows, and I'm talking about like big time podcasts, and they just like, I want to hear more. I want to hear what else. Like, give me detail. And they're like, well, we're like 45 minutes in, and we need to kind of get out of here. And it's like, we're in an age you can just pause and come back to it. I'm not saying it's the world's greatest content, but I'm saying I'm trying to just do something good. I'm trying to provide some sort of goodness for people to hear, because there's so much bad shit to hear. And I know there's some darkness in this, within that, I get it, but you have to hear that to understand where he's at now and how far he's come. And that's kind of the theme here with all these people and myself. So thank you guys again. And as you can tell, I got a little spring in my step. Check me out on Instagram and Facebook. I've been kind of putting my story out there. I'm just trying to get a procedure done, and I actually have something on the table. Maybe can help some of my vision. So I want to get out of here because it's a long episode. But thank you guys again, and I'll give you more updates when I can. But thank you again, and I'll see you guys on the next one. All right, bye.